All right, y'all, what's going on, world? This is Kyle Williams here, Kevin Levrone, and we're here with This Is Not a Podcast, episode 1. So let's introduce ourselves, man. I'm Kyle Williams. I'm the CEO of Tunnel Vision, which is a sports apparel company. You're a new leader in athletic sports apparel. Check us out. And then Kevin, introduce yourself, man.
Kevin Levrone. I'm a kid that grew up now to a man that had a lot of visions, things I want to accomplish in life, and I really didn't have any directions, so I had to find my own directions. So I ended up becoming one of the best bodybuilders in the world on a professional level, and we can get it and talk about all that.
We'll get into all that.
But it's all about the journey, you know. It's all about the journey and finding your purpose. So.
Absolutely. So look, man, we are doing this. This is not a podcast. We talked, and we're like, man, we don't really want to do a podcast, but you and I, over the past year, we built a great relationship. We're damn near family, right? And, you know, we're having these conversations, man, and I know for myself, you know, I want to inspire people, the next generation of business owners, those that may feel lost, those athletes or whoever it is, man, they need that motivational push to, you know, from our experiences in business and life, to help, you know, maybe that younger group skip the time, the lapse the time of making those mistakes and different things, right?
Yeah.
I know coming up, you know, I didn't really have somebody to teach me how to do business in my early 20s. You know, I made a lot of mistakes, things that, you know, I want to try to help some other younger guys not go through it. And I know you kind of wanted to do that as well, inspire. We talked about trying to go back to our communities to do great work, you know, so why, you know, explain to me why we really doing this and your whole thing behind it.
Kyle, it's like when you came out of high school, right?
Yeah.
You always searching for that purpose.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think a lot of, as I'm out on the road touring and everything, you know, a lot of, most of the questions I get asked is, you know, how did you make it? How did you end up becoming, you know, how Kyle the Tunnel Vision, right?
$1 question.
None of us started off as business guys with this vision. We just wanted to be successful.
Absolutely.
So for those kids out there coming up, and I say the kids, you know, because teenagers and stuff like that, you know, I think this, like, number one, I think when we're born, God gives each and every one of us the gift inside of us, right?
Absolutely.
It's when we step outside of that and try to be like what we see others doing, then we find our purpose. I mean, we actually forget about our purpose because we try to be like somebody else, and then we get derailed. So simplicity, it's like people want to be like everybody else and follow that, what they know, you know, the norm is to success. But check this out. When God created fish, he created them to swim, right? That's what they do.
Absolutely.
So if you got a fish and he's born to swim, right? So every animal, like a bird, is born to fly. You know, they're not born to walk. So I think when we're born, God gives us, our purpose is inside of us. So the more that we spend at alone time, you know, because I know I spent a lot of time alone.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and detaching away from the progression of where the world is going and all the social media and success in these things. And so I think that we learn how to spend that alone time, then we'll actually find that purpose, because we won't have that outside interference, right? So you had a vision, and you once told me about your vision, which was Tunnel Vision.
We're gonna talk about that.
I was actually blown away by that, and I want you to actually share that with the people. But that happened when you were by yourself, not when you were in the crowd.
Nope.
Right? It happened when you were by yourself. So there's some power within, like, you know, spending alone time by yourself. So why don't you share, right?
Yeah.
Like how you found,
you
know, going from that teenage kid to Tunnel Vision to the business guy, right?
Absolutely.
What led you to where you are now?
Yeah, and I think, so for my story, right, as you talked about, you know, first, I want to talk about your influence, right, before I talked about my story. So your influence, you have a large influence, which we'll talk about here in a second. But what you're talking about is the impact, right? That's why we're doing this, is because
Yeah.
we want to use our influence to impact lives, right?
Right.
So me telling my story right now is really like God given, and it's amazing how all things worked out, right? So we trying to be here to inspire, and we gonna inspire some motherfuckers today, right? So with my story, man, you know, I was in college. I went to college for sports management. So my dream at first was to always be a sports agent. You know, you ever seen like Jerry
Yeah, well, hold
Maguire?
up. You had this dream
Mhm.
at what age?
When I was it was my senior year in college. So I was about like maybe like 20, 21 at the time. I might have been 21, 22, right? And it's funny, I was at home. I was sleeping on my mother's couch. Of course, I'm in college. I have no money, you know, and I had this dream, man. And in my dream, God had me running a business. It was called Tunnel Vision, right? And in that business, it was Tunnel Vision. It was a multi-million-dollar business. I remember it vividly, that I was running this shit and everything, right? And I don't remember specifically if it was directed towards sports like how it is today. But God gave me that dream for a reason, because you know how you have like a million dreams at different times or whatnot, but you don't remember shit, right? When I woke up the next morning, everything was crystal clear for me. And he even put it in my heart to reach out to my buddy at the time. I went to another school before I went to Towson at Virginia State, and he wasn't even a graphic designer. And I called him for some reason because something in my heart kept telling me, act on what you just dreamt about, right? I called him up. I said, man, I had this crazy dream. I own this business called Tunnel Vision, and something's telling me like I want to use it to create a business. And I can't even really explain it to you. Like it was so like divine and surreal that it's just something that pushed me towards wanting to act on it. It's not even something that I, you know, thought about owning my own business or anything, right? So I called him up, man. I said, I need a logo, right? And mind you,
After your dream.
after my dream, the next morning.
Hold up. So when you had this dream, did the logo come to you in the dream?
No. So this is the story that I'm telling you. So look, so I called him up. He's not even a graphic designer. He was just a guy that used to, you know, doodle. I knew him from Virginia State University when I was there. He was kind of cool at drawing. So I reached out to him. I was like, yo, I had this dream. I owned a business called Tunnel Vision. I was like, yo, can you draw me up a logo, right? So he's like, yeah, you know, I'm just, you know, all right, whatever kind of thing. So he hits me back like later on the day, and he sent me a digital graphic of the Tunnel Vision logo, which is exactly what it is today.
One.
Same one. I lied to you not. No edits or anything, right? And where we from? What state we from?
Maryland.
Don't it look like it's the Maryland flag in our logo?
I see that.
I didn't even ask him for that.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see that.
So everything from my influence and so forth, it came to me in a dream. And I know you talked about dreams and acting on them and what we all have desires for and what God gives us talents and different things. God gave me that.
Let me ask you this. God gave that. So when you saw the logo, did you know that that's it coming, you know, full vision, full everything that you needed, you know, like that logo, obviously you didn't have to think about it. You was like, wow.
Yeah.
So you knew
it caught my
that's
attention. It caught my attention.
The logo.
Caught my attention all very. And then you know what, at the time, I had one of my best friends. He was like, he saw it. He was like, yo, you need to put that shit on some shirts, on some hoodies. Right?
But you still in college though, right?
I'm still in college.
No money, no nothing.
No money, no nothing.
So what's the next step?
So the next step was, right, we out there. He like, yo, my man, you know, my buddy of mine, he know how to get screen print. You know, you guys know screen print. That's like the basic, you know, production process of putting stuff on t-shirts and things like that. He was like, yo, what we should do is we should go up here, let's get some shirts and some hoodies. You need to put that logo on it. We can sell that motherfucker, right? I was like, yo, I ain't got the bread. He's like, yo, I got you. You know, I'll get the first batch for you and everything like that.
So your first batch, how many shirts you get printed?
I had probably like 20 of the black ones, which was our classic with the white logo.
Right.
20 of the white ones with the black logo, and then I had hoodies. And it's funny because the first hoodies I had, somebody painted them for me in acrylic. It's funny.
You still have those?
I probably
It
somewhere.
might be worth a little
yeah,
something.
it might be worth a little something, right? So we started off
something.
with the acrylic ones, man. And
it's always the start, though.
Right, always. And then look, so at the first time, when we first got the first batch, right, we was posting up on Facebook. And at the time, Instagram wasn't out. We was posting on Facebook and everything. And like everybody was like, yo, that logo hard. And I was pushing it more so first for like positivity, ambition, tunnel vision, having that focus, getting out there to accomplish your goals and your dreams. But everybody was like, yo, turn that into a brand. And that's how it got, related into sports. So I'm putting this, I had a polo bag. It looked like a Gucci bag, but couldn't nobody tell. So I thought I was stunting, right? So I wrapped up the shirts and the hoodies in like the plastic covers. And I was putting it in a bag. I had a 4Runner truck at the time.
In college. Hustling.
Right? And I was posting.
Now you got shirts.
Everybody,
you're selling and posting and selling.
Everybody hit me like, yo, can you drop one off? So I'm driving around. I'm coming out the trunk with the bag. You get what I'm saying? Dropping off hoodies and shirts. And then.
So what? First year of college? You got
first year of college.
First
year of college. And then what's funny is what happened from there, man, is a guy, he put together an international trip to Italy, right? Where we took the best high school basketball players over to Italy to compete in a world basketball tournament. And he asked me, did we want to sponsor the jerseys? That's how we got into sports, because we put our logo on
So,
there.
First year, you get the vision, shirts come out, you start selling them on campus, yada, yada, yada. So when did the guy come along for like, okay, now can you sponsor us and all this? So when did that start evolving?
It was like 3 months later after I started.
Really? So it started happening pretty quick.
Yeah, because I picked up like a lot of attention quick from my local supporters and everything. Everybody's like, yo, let me get one. Everybody.
Before you even get out of college.
One time in college in Anne Arundel County, everybody was walking around with tunnel vision shirts and hoodies. You get what I'm saying?
What year was this?
Man, that was what, 2011?
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So I kind of just went from there. And
so in how many years did you do in college?
I did 4.5.
And what did you go to college for?
Sports management.
Sports management.
Yep. So I went to be a sports agent. My first year out of college, I interned at the largest sports agency in the world, which is Octagon. It's in McLean, Virginia. And I was set up there. I was working in the NBA division. And at the time, their biggest client was Steph Curry. He just was a rookie.
Wow.
That was their client, man. And I left that pro bono to start my business full time.
So it's like, and a lot of people don't know, they just see the logo and they see success, right? But they don't see the history of it,
They don't
right?
see the history.
So you actually went through college, struggled through college, had the vision, had that dream. God gave you that dream.
Yep.
That logo came through your boy. It's like, boom. And next thing you know, you're still in college.
Still in college.
So
Hustling.
at what, because it's very interesting, what part of college, what year was it that you actually sponsored your first team?
I'm going to tell you a crazy story. And this is something like, when you talk about in business, as you probably know, taking a leap of faith and jumping off into the deep, dark end that you know nothing about. I was supposed to graduate in summer of 2011, right? When that guy came for that opportunity for us to go to Italy for tunnel vision and sponsor that, the uniforms and shit, I didn't go and take my fucking exams because I thought so much of the opportunity. So my mother, she didn't even know about this at the time. I failed my exams my senior year to graduate because I went to Italy to get my business jumping and off the ground. At the time, they had the top basketball player in the nation, Akil Carr, who was the biggest YouTube sensation in the world. So I saw the opportunity, to put my brand on him and to kind of link up.
You did it.
And it did it, and it worked. And I had to stay an extra semester just to graduate because I failed. I failed my exam. I didn't show up.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy story, right?
So you skipped out, huh?
I skipped out, but it all worked out in the end. And that's like, some of the stuff we're going to talk about.
So actually, you don't regret that, obviously.
No, hell no.
No.
At
So
the time,
just-
it was ballsy. It was
that's
crazy
impressive, man.
to do that. You know what I'm saying?
So then you went back and you finished the exam, right? You
No, I had to go
graduated.
back for a whole nother semester.
Another whole semester.
Yeah.
But you graduated.
Graduated,
You get out,
get out.
right?
Mhm.
With this still vision of tunnel vision.
hmm
So does your family think you probably like crazy?
They did. And even up until probably about maybe like 2018, they used to always like, man, you should have never left your job, or
Yeah.
you need to go, man, I want you to work for the government. They putting that pressure on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a young entrepreneur that you got to kind of tune out. I'm going to talk to you about this as later on during the show, something that happened during COVID as well that kind of reiterated
I find that a lot, man. It's like when you have a dream and you have a vision, guess what? You're the only one that believes in it.
True. And then I think a lot of times, especially like in African American communities, right? It's not our family not believing in us. they're just so scared because it's maybe something that they never could fathom. You get what I'm saying? It's like they putting their insecurities on
You're
us.
really the only one that
Right.
believes in your dreams.
Right, because they want you to be safe,
Yeah.
right? They want you to
Yeah,
have a nice
absolutely.
job.
Then
and-
when they start seeing them
Yeah.
come true,
yeah,
then they start getting on board. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything.
yeah,
But really, yeah, you from what I, yeah, it's like, yeah,
yeah.
you took risk.
Big risk, man. Big
You know,
risk.
but that dream, I think that dream and that connection with God put you on that path.
Sure.
So do you have because of that dream or before that dream, have you had a connection or some kind of relationship with God?
I always had a relationship with God simply because, it's funny, we in Annapolis and my family, my mother's side of the family, they from Annapolis. And I used to come out here on Spy Road all of the time. My great grandmother had a house. And every time I was with her, because my mom was she was like 17 when she had me. She would drop me off at my great grandmother's. But we were always forced to go to church.
Mm.
I'm not saying in a bad way. When you're a kid, you like, man, I gotta go to church, But I was raised in the church and I always had a belief in a relationship with God. But I always say this, man, having a business will make you have a stronger relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because you go through them storms, you know what I mean? It's just a different type of thing. So always, man, and I know that he gave me that dream for sure.
Let me ask you this, and so do you have any regrets or anything you would change about the paths and the choices that you've made?
I don't have any regrets because everything that happened, it made me into the seasoned person that I am today, right? Everything happened was supposed to happen exactly the way that it did. And I feel like if I cut some corners or some things didn't happen, I wouldn't be in the position I am today or who I am. So,
I mean, you've, what high school you got from Annapolis High School?
Nah, I went to Old Mill, but I graduated from North County High School. It used to be Andover High
I
School
mean,
back in the day.
to have a dream like that,
Mhm.
in the midst of trying to find out what it is you want to do,
Yeah.
and God come to you and give you that dream and that vision and everything. And to this day, how long ago was that dream?
Well, I had it late 2010.
Late 2010.
Yeah.
And you still
Still going.
on course today, just from that.
Still going. And I think that, just from.
Hold up. Prior to that, having that dream, did you pray to God and say, God, help me, what I need to do to be successful, what I need to do, through college, or what happened? What you think led up
I don't know.
to God giving you this
that's
dream?
what I'm saying. I don't remember myself praying or asking for something like that. I always, like I told you, I wanted to be a sports agent. I always wanted to be around, I love sports, so I always wanted to be around sports and manage athletes. That's what I'm saying. I never asked for anything like that. So it was like an assignment.
But you have many dreams. You know, we dream all the time.
Why did I remember
Why
that
was
one?
this the one?
Why did I remember that
That's
one?
what I'm saying.
You get what I'm saying?
And how did you know that was the one? That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Really?
Yeah. So that's weird, but it's
Yeah.
divine in the same time, man. And I always say, for the longest too, coming out of college, I had to work some bullshit jobs,
Yeah.
right? I had to work at Enterprise, and I used to be a armed diplomatic security officer for the State Department, so for the government and so forth. And that was a good paying job that I left pro bono, cold turkey, in 2016, because I was like, you know what? From 2011, right, to 2016, I had to work my dream while I was at work. So you can go back and talk to
Tunnel vision.
You can go back and talk to my managers at Enterprise. I was in the back working on tunnel vision on their time. And then I told them straight up, I didn't want to, because they kept trying to get me to be a branch manager. I was like, look, I'm here to make my money, but I know what I'm trying to be in my business. And then finally they bought into it, right? And they were allowing me to kind of build my business and learn while I was there. And the same thing at the other job. We weren't even supposed to have phones on my government job. I would sneak my phone on post, right? And I would be texting my customers and stuff while I'm at work. And I built it up to the point where I was making enough where I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to just quit.
So now you start making money.
Yeah, quit. I had a government clearance. I left it behind. And then I went and got my brick and mortar out here in Annapolis in 2016. And we've been strong ever since.
You've done some amazing things and ties to the community. We'll talk about all that stuff. And
let's talk. I want to talk about your origin.
Yeah, but still, story. It's like what you've been able to accomplish You know, they just see, success and the logos and you doing things in the community,
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the whole Anne Arundel County and
Right.
throughout the whole Maryland. You've done some amazing things, and I was blown away when you went back to the community where I came from,
Sure.
Me Village, and giving back to the kids and rebuilding the basketball courts
Mm-hmm.
and the connection you have with the county executives and just everybody. It's pretty mind blowing, man. Because me as an athlete, accomplishing the things that I have, I don't have that interconnection that you have,
Mm-hmm.
grounded with, the community.
Sure.
You know what I mean, with the executives and the county councilmen and stuff like that. And I got to say, man, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, bro, because you've done some amazing things. You've done things that I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, and I know for a fact that, again, going back to how we first started, is God gives us that vision. When
Sure.
we're born with everything we need to be successful. I can't be Kyle and you can't be Kevin Levrone.
Right.
So those tie-ins that you have with our community, is deep.
Yeah.
And it runs deep. I mean, you've been, 15 years into this now?
About 13, 14.
13, 14, going on 15.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, never forget where we come from, but always pass it on and help each other.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's a lot. That's has a lot to say about what we're doing right now. We're merging two different universes, two different worlds and everything. I can't be you, but what I can do is be a part of what you have going on and support what you have going on. I think that's one thing we're missing in our community today around here, because I know you're so involved in it and everything. And I see the outreach, what you're doing with the kids and everybody, bro. So proud of you, nephew.
Let's talk about, we'll get into Me Village and what all we do there, but I want to talk about you coming from Me Village. How did that shape what you're doing today? And then how did you even get started in bodybuilding and the Levrone Signature Series and all the things that you got?
Yeah, my
Let's hear
journey.
about your story. I need to learn about your story.
Yeah, my journey was totally, completely different than yours. I didn't have a dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? My father died when I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first funeral I ever went to, was my father's funeral.
Shit.
My father used to take me to school every day. We lived in, had a big piece of property. We had horses. We had, chickens. We had we had dogs. We had all kind of animals, pigs and everything. I used to get up 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to go take the trash out and feed all the animals. So we pretty much lived on like a farm environment.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So within no time at all, man, I mean, it's like, I woke up one day. My father used to drive me to the bus stop because he had a big piece of property. I get in the car with him, ride down to the bus stop. My mother said, you got to walk to the bus stop because your father's back is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay. So not only did my father take me to the bus stop, he also picked me up from school, right? So I walked to the bus stop first time, and then when school was done, 3 or 4 o'clock, he wasn't there. I was probably in the 6th grade at the time, but he didn't come to pick me up. So I waited, on the steps of that elementary school, and he never showed up. Never showed up. It started getting dark, and the janitor had to take me home. Her name was Miss Smith. I never forget about it. Yeah, she was a black lady. She took me home, got home, and you see my mother, and you see my father. House was empty. Only one there was my uncle. That was real strange, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because normally after school, you come home, mama make a dinner.
Yeah, right.
And all that. So this didn't happen, so I was like, wow, okay. And I asked my uncle, I said, well, where's daddy? He said, I says, where's mama? He said, oh, she at the hospital. I didn't even know what a hospital was.
What age were you?
I was 10.
10?
I didn't even know what a hospital was, right? So they were at the hospital, and I didn't see my mother until actually the next morning.
Shit.
I used to sleep in the bedroom with my mother and my father, between both of them. And this day, everything just changed. And I didn't see him no more,
Mm.
ever. 2 weeks later, he died. I went to the hospital for the first time to see my father. I didn't recognize him because he had cancer,
Okay.
And he turned yellow and just had leukemia and lost a lot of weight. I didn't even know who he was. So within 2 weeks, I'm going to the first funeral of my life, never even know what a funeral is. Like you, I used to go to church all the time, sing on the choir between my two sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole life changed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first funeral was my father's. And at that point, I got real angry with God,
Mm-hmm.
So, because my mother used to take me to church, and I was like, if God was what you say he is, and why did he take daddy?
Right.
Kid growing up. And it just didn't make sense to me. So that was my first introduction to like pain and death and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
At 10 years old. And we lost everything, man. We ended up losing the house.
Mm-hmm.
My father was buried on Christmas Eve.
Oh, shit.
Talk about Christmas. It didn't even exist no more.
Mm-hmm.
It meant nothing to me. Nothing really meant anything to me. I didn't even want to go to school no more.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I did go to school, kids would make fun of me because that's Kevin, he ain't got no father. His father died.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about 1975.
Right. It's a different time.
So it was strange.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to adapt to that. So leaving that farm environment, that family environment, burying your father with those images in your head as a kid, that young, and trying to find your way through life without a father.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but now you got to move to a low-income housing development, So we ended up moving within 5 months. We had to move to a place called Me Village, and get on government assistance because it was 6 of us.
Right.
My mother had 6 kids, but she always stood close to God and everything. And I think through that right there, I didn't want to be around nobody. You know what I mean? I just wanted my father died. Then you go from that to gunshots,
Mm-hmm.
drug dealing neighborhood,
Right.
friends getting murdered in the street. It was a culture shock.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Going around a bunch of strangers in the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
We lived there for 6, 7 years. I lived there for 7 years in Me Village, Not saying it's bad, but it was a developmental process for me.
Sure.
And also my brothers and my sisters. And I think that had a lot to do with, cultivating who you are and finding your purpose in life, And they always say, was everything you want to change about whatever it is? I wouldn't change anything because if my father never died from cancer, I probably would have never started going to the gym when I was in school. I started going to the gym. I started doing push-ups.
That's how that started.
Because he died from cancer. I didn't know what cancer was. I started doing my research on cancer. I knew that had something to do with the body.
Mm-hmm.
So all I knew was my father used to eat a pound of bacon every day.
Mm-hmm.
He never exercised. He used to work. So I started exercising. I started, getting into martial arts. I started doing all these things to, support your body, right?
Sure.
To help your body be healthy. So, and I always say to this day, my success came from my pain and suffering. But it led me to working out. It led me to doing sit-ups. It led me to eating right. It led me to, put me on that path.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, fast forward, just before high school, my mother died of cancer. You know what I mean? In that same very place, Me Village, which I always wanted. At that point, I'm like, I want to be successful so I can get us out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that getting up every day, going to work wasn't it. Working for somebody else wasn't it. I wanted to make my mother proud. I just went to the gym, trained, did what I had to do, stayed alone by myself. And next thing I know, after my mother died, she had colon cancer. I just got into working out full steam because I was pissed off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was pissed off. So all that pain and suffering, it just led me to the gym.
Yeah.
Internally.
Keep going,
I'm gonna go in the
keep
gym.
going.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
hit it. I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna hit it.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, my body starts developing. These things start happening, and I see, wow, okay. Now I'm starting to feel good about myself 15, 10 years later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went and I competed in the state of Maryland, ended up winning, and I felt like, when I won the Mr. Maryland, that was 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1992, it was crazy, man. Ended up winning my pro card, turning pro.
Mm-hmm.
My mother died 2 years before that, so I dedicated the show to her. My whole life changed, and I was just on an elevator to another whole level. And it kind of like happened overnight.
Yeah.
But you think it happened overnight. People see the success, but they don't see the pain and suffering. Like people look at Kevin Levrone today. Yeah, I might have the best record in professional bodybuilding history, but they don't know my father died when I was 10.
Right.
My father's first funeral I went to was my father's. I was 10. My struggles with God was hard. It was deep.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling. If God was good, like Mama said, well, why did he take Daddy?
Mm-hmm.
Why did God endure pain on us? So that became another thing for me, as I was living my life. And I'm thinking, why is all these bad things happening to innocent people?
Right.
So when you think your life falling apart, it's actually falling into place.
Coming together.
But it didn't make sense to me when it was falling apart at that age, but it all makes sense to me now, and if my father had never died at 10, the world wouldn't even know who I am right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that had to happen for the world to even find out who I am.
How do you feel
It's
like
crazy.
You came up, right, in the bodybuilding scene in the early 90s. You see, like today, we got social media, the click of the phone and everything. How do you feel like you were able to rise and take that fame to who you are today? Like, what did that for you?
What did it is just staying true to who you are as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things on social media that's great. There's a lot of things out there that's, fake and not real.
Mm-hmm.
I think my rise and everything is, of course, the platform, but being able to have that platform to get our stories out of struggle.
Sure.
It was struggling for me, bro.
Yeah.
I had to work at 14 years old. I was mopping floors in the middle school. You know what I mean? Because I had to help my mother pay bills when we were living in Mee Village.
Yeah.
I was a janitor in school, mopping floors. And
At 14.
At 14, kids getting out of class laughing at me.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing football. I'm mopping floors. And it's like never despise the day of a small beginning, because you never know where God gonna lead you. But that was all part of my development.
Sure.
Like right now, you have kids, right? You just had twins. I have a son. My son's 18 years old. My life for living right now is so my son can have a better life.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
If God come to me today, because I know how much I love him and what I do for him, if God, maybe my dad had this conversation, hey, your youngest boy, Kevin Levrone, the youngest kid, Kevin, that's 10, it's going to hurt him. But God probably said, hey, I'm going to guarantee you this. I'm going to have to take you out of here.
Right.
But he going to carry on your name, not only here, but globally around the world, and impact and change so many people's lives.
Absolutely.
Either you can live, and I can guarantee if you live, he ain't gonna have that. But if I take you, send you to heaven, that young one of yours, he gonna go through something, but he gonna save a lot of lives.
Absolutely.
If God had that conversation with me, I would say, take my life today, right? Because I'm living my life for my son to have a great life, the way that I can figure it out. But God always knows what's best, right? So maybe he took Pop because he knew the plan for my life, the purpose for my life. So I would say, yeah, God, take my life. If my son could do greater things than me, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And I think, like for our youngins out there listening, it's like, hold on, because you don't know. You only got a few pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? When I was 10, I had 10 pieces to that puzzle, right? Only 10 pieces.
Right.
If you have a puzzle that has 75 pieces, which the average life is 75
Mm-hmm.
years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And only got 10, that shit ain't gonna make sense.
Right.
But guess what? I got 60 now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm 60 years old.
Right.
So I got 60 pieces, and I'm like, damn, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know why Daddy died when I was 10. Now I know why Mama died when I was 18, right? Now I know why all that stuff happened when I was 20s. You got 60 pieces, you can almost guess
Right.
what your purpose is. You know what your purpose is now.
It's funny
You
how that
got
works because everything, like you said, in the moments, it seems so confusing. You angry, but now that you look back on it, you understand your life more, why things happened the way that they did and how it all played out. And when you were kind of asking me, did I regret anything? That's why I feel like even the failures that I had, I learned so much from it that I can be an expert in a lot of the things that where in comparison to maybe somebody else running a similar company, they may not know how to handle those situations like I do. Like I used to have a lot of anxiety when I first started running my business. I would worry about shit. Now when something happens, I'm like cool as a fan because it's second nature to me. I've been there before. I went through COVID and survived doing business and having my manufacturer shut down and all that type of stuff. So what you're saying is a testament to all
Now,
that.
nephew, going back to you. So, now the tunnel vision and everything, right?
Right.
Because we want people to grasp the
Yeah.
that success just don't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I might have turned pro within 2 years, but my father had to die when I was 10, but I turned pro in 1991.
So how long was that lapse? What was that?
From 95
Uh-huh.
to 1991. How many years is that?
You said 95 or 85?
He died in 95,
Okay.
but in 1991 I turned pro.
Okay.
So that was all educational building, right? Mentality and all that shit.
Right.
Put me on that mindset. It took that long for me to get into, you know
like
what I mean?
5 years.
To competing,
or so, 5,
yeah.
6 years. Yeah.
Nah, longer than that.
Longer than that?
Yeah, from 95 to 1991, shit, that's like 15 years.
So you mean
Nah, about 13 years.
you mean 1985?
1975.
Okay.
To 19,
yeah, that's why because you confused.
91.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
75 to 91.
That's why I was getting confused
Yeah.
about. Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. But yeah, like you said, so a lot of people don't
They
understand.
don't see that shit, man.
That's the crazy thing.
They don't see it.
I say this all the time. It takes 10 to 15 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
Like you really have to have that real journey.
Yeah.
You got some people that just is these rare extreme cases, but it really takes you 10, 15 years to really get in your groove, to build up. And a lot of people don't have patience to be great.
Yeah, that character.
You don't have the patience
All
because everybody lives in this Amazon Prime world where it's like I ordered yesterday, I want it today. And that's how they think it is with their dreams. And it's like, no, it's completely
Yeah, it ain't gonna
like,
happen.
you know how many times, I wasn't going to quit, but you know how many times it might have played in my head to think maybe this ain't for me because times got so rough. Have you ever dealt with that, like in your profession when you felt like, man, this shit, I know.
Yeah, I felt like
When you-
quitting many times.
Yeah.
But I also know that if it's up to me, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Because I ain't had nobody to fall back on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I'm gonna prove them wrong.
Right.
All the niggas that laughed at me, all the niggas said, yeah, you ain't got a daddy, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
All the football players, it's like, you know what? Look at me now.
Right.
They out there working for somebody,
Mm-hmm. And I remember.
So it's like, I'm not hateful or anything, but
Right.
it takes all that to push you to your purpose, man.
Yo.
So it takes all the pain, takes all the haters, takes all the doubters.
Yeah.
It takes all the relationships that went south, all the people that don't believe in you, the ones that backed out on you,
Yeah.
for you to be strong enough to be who you are today, right?
Yeah.
Tunnel Vision and Levrone Signature Series.
I used to use
And-
like the hate and the doubt. It would fuel me,
Yeah.
right? Like, cause I would be like, when I made it, you know how it is in our community. You make a mistake, that's all they talk about, right? But all of the great things they quiet about. You know what I mean? They know they watching, right?
Yeah.
But they don't they're not talking about your accomplishments like they are your mistakes that you made. You're defined by your mistakes within our community. They don't do that shit in other countries, other communities, and stuff like that. We do that to ourselves. But the things that you're saying is like using that. That was my inspiration behind creating that tunnel vision, which is locking in. Well, see, when you like this, I can't see what's on the side of each hand. I'm blocking it out because I'm just focused on what's straight ahead. You get what I'm saying? And that's like my like motivation, my culture behind the brand is like locking in, chasing your dreams and getting to it. And that's like what your life is about. Is you had that tunnel vision. You was like, what happened was a negative experience with your dad, but you had that tunnel vision. You were locking in, you were chasing your dreams, and wasn't nobody could come in between this right here. You get what I'm saying?
That's right.
And that's how, really it takes to be great and get where you want to go in this world. And I just wanted us to, through our experiences, to let people know, like, look, I've had doubts. Kevin right here, Kevin's world famous, man. He's had doubted himself sometimes, but you got to learn how to tune that little voice in the back of your mind out, because you could be stopped. You could be one move away, man, from a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
It could be any time, whether you young,
and
whether
it's
you
always
old.
it's always somebody that know that person
Yeah,
that could put us down, or
That's
that
it.
person to know somebody. I've had these things happen so many times, But going back to you, right? So, all right, tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out of university, so you graduate now, yada yada yada. You went back, got your degree and everything. Now you out in mainstream world.
Yeah.
Tunnel vision is out mainstream world. So now, how did you decide? We know you got your brand and you got the marketing and promoting and sponsoring basketball tournaments and all this. When did you decide to put the twist on it? Because I really got to commend you for this one, and I want to actually do this more. Is giving back to the communities.
Yeah.
Because for Christmas, you got gifts. For Thanksgiving, you're giving out turkeys, bikes, and so many things. You're traveling the world, painting, going into the low-income housing developments where I lived in Mead Village, and I had to go back there, and I saw. I was blown away. I'm like, man, really?
Yeah.
You in Mead Village? And I see how it's changed, and how it's just really changed, and the place is just you've done a lot to develop these lower income housing project areas into good places,
Sure.
because I was in Memphis, there's no gunshots and stuff like it used to be back in the 90s.
Right.
And I was really impressed, man. I know you had a lot to do with that. The way that you bring those communities together,
Yeah.
For a function and for events and through each and every holiday that we have and everything. So how did you decide, where was it that you had this vision of tunnel vision, giving back? Because a lot of people have these visions and they keep them to themselves.
Right.
But one thing that y'all do with tunnel vision and everything, you went out into the communities. When did this start happening after you got out of college?
So I always had a heart for giving back to people anyway, right? So I always knew that through my business, we wanted to be able to like impact communities, impact lives, especially those that, go through some extreme difficult situations, right? It really happened. It came to fruition in 2020 during COVID, right? At the time, as you know, we were in lockdown. There was nothing going on. People were not working, maybe not getting as paid as much and different things. And, I right there in Mead, I lived in Severn, Maryland. It wasn't in Mead Village, but it wasn't too far, right? And during that time, man, a lot of people were not able to pay their bills. They couldn't put food on the table and different things like that, right? But it just so happened to be that, I'm connected in the sports world, and so many basketball players were trying to figure out a way just to get out of the house to relieve some frustration and so forth. So we started through Fat Man, who's on our team, and we created a nonprofit called the Chase Your Dreams Initiative, right? So Carmicel Brown from our team, he was like, yo, we should start a nonprofit. So I was like, that's a good idea. So I came up with the name Chase Your Dreams Initiative because I built it around our slogan from Tunnel Vision, which is Chase Your Dreams. And we just started doing it as, get people out of the house, their mental health space right. Come on out here in Mead Village, let's play basketball. We had like 200 and something people that came out there for an open run one day, right?
Why did you pick Mead Village?
It was funny because we were playing basketball over in Providence or Dorsey Road, but one guy, Unc, shout out to Unc, he from over Mead Village or so forth. He was like, yo, let's go out to Mead Village because they got 2 courts right side by side. It's big. Ain't nobody gonna mess with us out there because if you go, you couldn't be outside playing sports. Remember during the lockdown, it was illegal to do that. But in Mead Village, it was more ducked off. We knew wasn't nobody from the county or police. They weren't going to go back there and bother nobody. So it was an easy way to kind of like, section ourselves off from the rest of the county and so forth. So we started back there, and it was like 250 people that came out.
Your first game?
First game, just to play basketball. We had to take a sign-up
Did y'all
sheet.
advertise?
No, it was just like on
word of mouth.
Facebook group and a word of mouth. It was just crazy. So
and what year was this?
We had people
2020
during COVID. And we had people coming out from DC, Baltimore. Like everybody was coming to play because nowhere else in the world.
So it was Tunnel Vision or Chase Your Dreams, Tunnel Vision basketball tournament?
It was just a pickup basketball thing at first. Right?
On the weekend?
Yeah, it was during the week because everybody was at home. And we just kept doing it, right? And the next thing you know, I was like, man, y'all need to put together a league. So Fat Man and Jay was like, all right. So they came to me. I was like, yo, we need to do a league. And it clicked. I was like, yo, that's crazy. We should do that, right? So they was like, yo, but don't put your logo on it because if they see that, the county, they might sue the business up because we're not supposed to be outside playing. But me having a vision, I seen everything that we doing now starting through sports. Sports is like the connector of everything.
So because of that, then you said, no, I got to include the county.
Right. So because of that, this is the funny part. We started doing it, right? So I was like, look, y'all get y'all teams together, register your teams, right? Y'all just pay $100. Just get in the league, pay $100, which is not enough money to run a basketball league, if you know about that, right? And I'm like, they were like, yeah, woo, woo. I was like, yo, all the money that we get from the league, we're going to give back to the community, right? They were like, what you talking about? I'm like, no, listen to me. This is how we're going to connect the community through these hard times, and we're going to help people out, and we're going to spread this out throughout Anne Arundel County and through Maryland. So lo and behold, through that first year, once Rex and Parks found out about it, they were trying to shut it down. They're like, oh man, these dudes, they thugs, they out here, so forth. You get what I'm saying? They was calling me a thug because they thought we was doing something crazy, but it was all positive, right? So once they figured out what we were doing, they didn't want to shut it down because they didn't want to get the backlash from the community about it. So that first year, man, we had a back to school giveaway because at the time.
Yeah, but you had to go and have obviously meetings.
Yeah,
we had the county executives.
The county executive.
And you had to get the approval and they had to say, okay, we trust you, right?
Right. And then
you guys created the nonprofit.
Yeah.
And you showed them all that stuff because we're talking about the business end of it now.
Yeah.
That took a lot of legwork and a lot of vision and all that. And you guys, not only did you have that vision, but you also took care of the business back end of that. Right. And the presentation that all came along about. Yeah. And how long did that process take to where the county came in?
I would probably say it probably took a matter of 2 months during that summer when we did the back to school giveaway and everything. And then now.
So Tunnel Vision, you team up with Chase Your Dreams, and then you're like, you know what? We got to do this. We got to include the county, obviously. They want us to do this. And they said, Kyle, this is boo-boo. So you head fronted all that. Head fronted far as.
We started out fronting everything.
Yeah.
We were helping people pay their electric bills. We were feeding
in Mead Village, in the lower income housing
all of that.
development.
We were helping
areas.
them get assistance, all different type of things.
So the county's doing this, but you guys are doing so much more because you guys are door to door. You guys have the relationships, and they know that they could depend on you because every week you coming back. And that was pouring into it.
I'm glad you say that because the reason why we have such a great relationship with the community now is because at first they were afraid, oh, you're going to be like everybody else. You're going to come in here, take your photos and shit, and then you're going to be gone. But we've been there consistently every month.
And it's not about the money. It's not about giving back.
Right. And then now it's spited out throughout the county, man. And we're known now. Of course, our sports apparel company is known for what we do, but we're known on Chase Your Dreams Initiative, which is our nonprofit, as
that's deep.
The biggest organization in Anne Arundel County with the boots on the ground.
That's what I'm saying. That's like your vision is a gift from God, man. That dream turned into
everything, right?
because not everybody in the county knows you.
Yeah. And now we pride
You know?
ourselves with using, so the Chase Your Dreams initiative is under Tunnel Vision as our nonprofit, and it's
But to shed
use
some light
sports.
on that same neighborhood that you talking about
That's your
is where I
neighborhood.
moved when I was 10 years old,
Yeah.
back in 1995,
Right.
1996.
Mhm.
And I went to the house where I used to stay.
Mhm.
And I went there, you know, over the summer when you were having
I remember.
tournaments
I
and
remember
the
you
whole
was
development.
asking me,
I
yeah.
seen everything. It has changed so much. I was blown away, man.
Yeah.
And I know that your vision and you know, everything you guys did through your nonprofit,
Yeah.
Chase Your Dreams nonprofit, and everything. How powerful that is to have an influence on a community is tremendous. Listen, I used to wake up and go to bed and hear gunshots
Yeah.
in the morning and at night.
Mhm.
I had friends who were shot and killed and murdered in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Drug dealers, people wouldn't make it out of that neighborhood. Like, so much stuff was going on. It was one of the highest crime rate neighborhoods. You couldn't even walk in Mead Village unless somebody knew who you were.
Mhm.
And you weren't even born back then. You was
No.
probably 1 year old. But to let you know how God worked, man, when you invited me to come down there, and I'm like, what? Mead Village? And I saw a change
Mhm.
and how everybody was just one in the love in that community, and almost no crime, which is really no crime. You can walk through there now.
Mhm.
You know, it's a family now.
Mhm.
You know, everybody pulling together for the greater good to help each other.
Right.
And I would have never thought that day would have come, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And honestly, that's why I never went back.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
but you've allowed athletes like me who
Mhm.
came out of that environment to go back.
Mhm.
You know, and tell our story that yeah, we once here, but we were so afraid to come back.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but that vision that you have, and through your nonprofit, you know, and everything, it allowed guys like me to come back home, man.
Oh, absolutely.
So that respect level, man, and,
Yeah.
and that unity, that vision that you've been able to pull all of us together, the county councils, through your vision. You know what I mean? That's God, man.
No,
That's
absolutely.
God, bro.
And I think that you know, it kind of reflects the work that you're doing,
Yeah,
right, in the
that's
community abroad. So it's like,
Yeah.
let's talk about that as well, because you're doing a lot of philanthropic community work abroad in these different countries, man. Like, let's talk about that. Like, how did you get into that? You know, what's the experience like traveling to these different countries, and then what's the real impact of what you're doing and what you like?
Yeah.
Let's talk
You know,
about
I
that.
don't like talking
No,
about
man,
myself
let's talk
a
about it.
whole
We
lot,
gotta talk about it.
you know, and all that. For me, I first of all, I got to give God all the credit for my life in the world, you know, because I never thought that I would end up where I'm at today. And I say that because, you know, it's like there was no blueprint for me.
Sure.
You know, there was no blueprint at all, because I was the first professional bodybuilder ever came out of the whole state of Maryland. Nobody never even did it before, you know. And then, you know, competing on a pro level and turning pro when I was 20, 23, 24 years old, second in the world, you know, on the global stage.
Right.
Like, I can only contribute that to God, you know. I don't know how it happened. It happened probably because it was just, I never gave up.
Yeah.
Never gave up on God. You know, no matter what I was going through, I've always, even though we might have had our battles, you know, He'd throw me out there on those sleepless nights and make things difficult for me. I just still know what my mother said, you know, she said, do more for others than you do for yourself.
Right.
And God gonna do the rest. So after I turned pro, you know, my whole life changed, man. I went to California, I met Joe Weider. Joe Weider brought Arnold Schwarzenegger over here from Austria. He was Mr. Olympia. And I just started making money doing something that I love.
Right.
You know, and for me, it wasn't work. It was like all that pain and suffering,
Yeah.
you know,
Finally
that I
got
was
to release
doing in the
it.
gym.
Yeah.
all those endless nights and days in the gym that I'm thinking nothing makes sense. Well, now you know I'm starting to get paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm getting paid for doing something that I love. I loved working out because God allowed me, and I was able to build, you know, a body around all my pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I always say my success came from the pain and suffering endured, right, for a greater purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, after of course, I turned pro in 1991, ended up winning the nationals, you know, had the quickest rise to professional bodybuilder in bodybuilding history. It was like one day I was an amateur, won the Maryland in 1990, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maryland state champion in 1990. Nobody knew who I was. And then on the pro level, being the second best pro in the world
Mm-hmm.
within 12 months.
Wow.
That's how it happened.
A 12-month.
It's like,
yeah.
It's like a kid getting, you know, coming out of college.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, he the best quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
Legitimately,
Mm-hmm.
overnight. So I held that title for 12, 13, 14 years, you know. Bodybuilding gave me a platform in America for the world to hear my story.
Right.
For kids to hear my story, for me to tell about my story. And I say that in the magazines. I was in Flex magazine, Muscle and Fitness, all the fitness magazines around the world. You know, this kid, you know, coming out of Maryland, you know, and I never really sit back and really told my story.
Right.
About me, village, about everything. There's no, yeah, your father died and boom, you turned pro.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the success and they think, oh yeah, he's just a gifted, talented athlete.
Right.
You know, a freak.
Yeah.
Right. The freak athlete that can do stuff that nobody else can do.
Right.
In a short period of time.
That's
what they say I am.
Right.
But they don't realize that, like, that mentality of never quit and never give up, no matter how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bad times don't last forever. As long as you never quit, you never lose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all that stuff, it's been endured, man, over so much a period of time. So after the Mr. Olympia, we would always have these tours, you know. We go to Spain, Italy, Germany, France,
okay.
Russia, Holland, Czechoslovakia.
Got you.
So 1992, you know, after the Mr. Olympia, I go on European tours,
Mm-hmm.
competing in Spain. I was Mr. Spain, I was Mr. Italy, I was Mr. Germany. I went into Russia for the first time when the KBG was in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When the Russian Mafia was in 1994. I was the first athlete in American history that ever went to Russia and won anything. So I'm actually Mr. Russia in 1994.
Shit.
You know, and the Russian Mafia brought me over there. So it's crazy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody said, "Oh, you crazy for doing this? You crazy?" But you got to follow that instinct, that what is it? A pilot that's lit down
Mm-hmm.
inside of you. And people think you're nuts and crazy, man. I look back now, and I'm thinking, you know, I got one of the most winning records in bodybuilding history.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to, miss 7 family reunions.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at no family reunions. I'm not even home for the holidays.
Yeah.
But I'm out here grinding, doing all these things, right? And at the time, I didn't have no kid or nothing. So I'm thinking, man, you know, this is cool.
Right.
And for me, I didn't want to be around home anyway because it reminded me of my parents.
Right.
There was sad moments for me to go to, you know, Thanksgivings and Christmases and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But God had a greater purpose. He wanted me to serve the world through my pain.
Sure.
I didn't even know it. I just felt like I was on a run. But look, while I'm out there, I'm winning everything.
Sure.
I'm winning every show in the world. 8, 9-time world champion, right? Like, you can't get a blueprint for that. And that's why I always say, you know, follow your purpose. Follow what it is that you have in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, I didn't even know, but now, 1992, 1993, all the way to 2000, to 2003, I'm competing, winning everything in the world.
Yeah.
Not only here, but overseas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, Russia, Holland, Czechoslovakia. Doing the things that people don't want to do because they want to stay here and be in their comfort zone.
Right, exactly.
You know? So I had an idea. I said, you know, I'm getting ready to retire, man. You know what I mean? What do I want to do
Mm-hmm.
with my platform to give back to
Mm-hmm.
people like what you've done? I didn't have no dreams. All I had was thoughts and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we started Levrone
Yeah.
Signature
How did
Series.
you get started in the supplement
Started
business? How did
Levrone
you?
Signature Series, man. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna start my Levrone Signature Series, which is sports
Hold on.
supplement
Which
brand.
is the top selling international brand in the country? Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't say it with pride,
yeah,
man. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
We've through my journey
Yep.
of finding professional bodybuilding, through
Mm-hmm.
all that pain and suffering, and competing,
Mm-hmm.
endless days and nights in hotel rooms by myself, when people told me I was stupid, dumb, and crazy, and I never could turn pro.
Mm-hmm.
God had a greater purpose, you know, still, you know. And I went back with a thought in mind that there's a kid somewhere, you know, in Spain or Poland or Germany, or in these countries that
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to, that's sitting there somewhere, that his parents don't believe in him or his friends don't believe in him, and he has no direction. So I went back to all of those countries and implemented myself in the community, somewhat like what Tunnel Vision do here.
Yeah.
I did it with using, of course, Levrone singers, well, me,
Sure.
because they would listen to Kevin Levrone.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I got a mic, I talk about the importance of taking care of your health, the importance of eating right,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of nutrition, and implemented that structure into the community. You know, not knowing that through nutrition and all of the experience that I had, then we decided, okay, let's develop the Levrone Signature Series and leave a piece of me in those communities,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Leave some protein, leave a donation of, you know, instructions. If you take this, if you train like this, and I'll be back to check on you. So I would go visit those countries and just leave them, you know, protein and give seminars and stuff for free.
Right.
You know what I mean? And enjoy doing it, man. And next thing I know, we've been doing it 11 years now, and I don't think about the money. I really don't even think about the excess. I think about where we are today,
Mm-hmm.
and I can happily, proudly say, you know, that we've been able to go into countries
Mm-hmm.
because it takes a team, man. We've been able to go into countries and help develop the infrastructure
Sure.
of those countries with sports, nutrition, and training, whether it's the police force,
Mm-hmm.
the kids in school that has a vision,
Mm-hmm.
the fire departments and stuff, the whole infrastructure of countries. And that's what we do,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And looking back now, we're now into it 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
11 years, you know. I started off with 4 products and just a thought. To this day, we have over 200 products, and we only were in like maybe 6 countries. And to this day, we're in 90 countries around the world, you
90
know, with
countries.
one of the largest owned minority sports supplement brands in the world,
Absolutely.
you know. And whoever thought that kid, Kevin, right, that
Mhm.
little boy that his father died, that will have a global world outreach and impact, you know, which we've been able to implement, you know what I mean? This year alone, by the grace of God, I still don't even know how it happens, man.
Right.
You know, I've been into 23 different countries, you know. Got to go to Kuwait this week, you know what I mean, coming up, going into Dubai, going into Georgia. And we're able because of the love, right?
Right.
We're able because of love, you know. I have strong relationships with countries, Uzbekistan,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Where there's wars right now, countries
Sure.
in Baghdad. I've been in Baghdad, you know. Iraq, you know. I got a lot of brothers over in Iraq that I love, you know, and Ukraine, you know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
in Ukraine, man. We still sell to Ukraine right now,
Mhm.
you know, and helping them get back up on their feet and running. You know, every month we donate supplements and stuff. We send it over to the military to help them out, you know what I mean? And you can't go to college for this stuff. You know,
Nah,
these are things
definitely
out
not.
here
Can't go to college
that,
for that.
you know, those sleepless nights, some nights, I go to bed 8:30, I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Thinking about, God, what's my purpose? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
My life isn't about me. It's dedicated for me to help each and everybody find their purpose in life. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I don't really like talking about success. I think it probably is successful. It's great that I have this platform, but I gotta surround it by God, you know, because I was on a flight one time to Russia, you know, been spending a lot of time in Russia too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were selling to Russia too, you know, for many years until the war started. In Israel, you know, in Pakistan, all these countries. You know, we sell to all these countries, you know, to this day, right? So it's like God told me I was on a flight. God said on his flight, he said, I'm going to give you a testimony, but if your testimony that I'm going to give you, which is your life, and what we're talking about now, he said, don't use it to glorify Satan. Use it to
Powerful.
glorify me.
Powerful.
Because if you don't glorify me, I'd rather take you out of this earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of letting you give the devil
Some power.
your glory.
Absolutely.
So I know without a doubt that no matter what I do and no matter what I accomplish, it's for him and for his greater purpose. And if I don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
God said, before I let you fall, that's what I heard, bro. He said, before I let you fall to the sins of this world,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take you out of here first. That's what God told me. So through that Levrone signature series, which is that name, Kevin Levrone, that's a character, that bodybuilding guy, been created through the pain and suffering from my daddy and from my mom and all that. But God was in the middle of all that.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll take my life first before he let me fall to the sins of this world. And I already know that's what it is.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's like, what is it? Greater the response, greater the sacrifice, greater the responsibility or something.
Yeah, something
like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, more the sacrifice,
Heavy
greater.
is the head that
you
wears
know
the
what I
crown.
mean?
You
And
know?
that's what it is. It's like people don't understand, man. It's like we have a lot of responsibility.
We sure do.
You, tunnel vision, and you being so wrapped and involved in the community.
Chase your dreams in this. You running
Chase
2
your
businesses.
dreams in
You
the
running
shoes
several
out of this.
businesses.
You got the county. You got people who depend on you as a role model.
Yeah, as a role model.
As a role model.
We're responsible for other people's livelihoods too.
You are. And no matter what comes out of your mouth can influence somebody.
Everything.
Positive or negative.
Yeah.
Right?
All the time.
And these are the things that we got to think about. Like, these are the things that I carry with me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to watch what I say.
Yep.
I have to watch who I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these things, it's a lot of responsibility, you know, and it's a huge sacrifice.
Sure.
A huge sacrifice. And people don't realize it. They want to be like you. But I always tell people, don't try to be like me. You know, when you're born perfect. Find your purpose in life. Find your way in life. I can give you this knowledge, and you can give them that knowledge, right? That can instill in them the path that they need to take. Don't try to be like us, youngins out there, you know, because you will never be the perfect copycat.
Never.
Never.
You're always going to be the best version of yourself. Never the copycat.
Yeah. And no matter what, people try to stand you down or stand me down and press us down.
Yeah.
They don't know that God already has the blueprint
Already.
purpose mapped out for each and every one of us in our lives. All we need to do is steadfast to him. Pray, God, help me in my weakest times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, show me the way. I'm frustrated. I might feel like, you know what I mean, taking myself out and quitting. But next thing you know, you run in to somebody or you hear that message, you're like,
it clicked.
man.
And I
For
think,
real?
and I
Yeah.
think like the most important thing that you said is just never quitting. Like that's probably like the biggest key to success for me is just to keep going. Because there's been so many times where I felt like shit had slowed down or maybe I didn't know which way to go next. But them days when you don't feel like showing up, it's just about showing up. Like you said, you're just showing up
Just
somewhere.
gotta
You're
show
meeting
up.
somebody who could change your life.
Show up.
You just show up, and even if you don't do all of the work today, you showed up and did some of it. You know what I mean? Just keep showing up every day.
Yeah.
That consistency is what's going to get you there. And I know that for a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, other people, you know, for me, you know, we always got this. I'm not gonna say it's an excuse because it's a real thing, right? We always go out there and say, man, I don't have the money. You know, I don't. But you can. I bootstrapped this business, right? We haven't had loans or investors or anything like that, right? You go through those times with staying consistent and you find ways to get creative. And when you find your passion and God knows you got that passion, He going, like you said, He's going to start providing the people in your life, the resources, things around you, and you work with what you got and you keep pushing. And I'm just saying that because for me, that was kind of the most challenging thing for me to stay so consistent throughout those years. But being that I did, things just started happening that I couldn't explain. Good things, right? And I'm saying is that as you stay on that course, you know, those things are just going to start happening to put you in the places that you need to be in. And a lot of times, for our biggest opportunities come from things that I can't even explain. People that I just met from crossing paths with somebody or being somewhere I wasn't even supposed to be there today, but look what happened. You know, so that's that divine intervention that you're talking about.
Divine intervention.
And
That's deep.
you know, just doing those things, man. But what's next? Like I know what we got like next in terms of like what we want to do next for the company. Like what's next that you want to do with Levrone Signatures here? I know you got the Uncrowned Kings. And,
yeah, I got you know, we're like I said, you know, it is you know, this year we hit 23 different countries, you know. What's next?
Have you feel like you've done everything?
I feel like I've accomplished everything in my life.
Yeah, you felt like that, and
Yeah,
that's a great
I really
space to
do.
be in.
I really felt like that, you know. I've been so many countries, man.
Yeah.
I've been traveling the world since I was, you know, 1992.
Right.
You know, seen a lot, and I know there's a lot of great human beings on this earth. You know, what we see here in USA is just probably 3% of what the world really has to offer, and what the education of world traveling, you can't get that from a university.
Right.
You know what I mean? And going into countries and seeing the culture of countries and the beauty, right? You see what you're looking for. You know, if you're an evil person, you're looking for evil. You're gonna see evil.
Right.
You know, if you're a lovable human being, you're gonna see love. So I try to go into not as a business perspective, but I go into the cities, go into the villages to feel the love from the cultures. You know, whether I'm in India or whatever country I'm in, and to see the simplicity, because beauty is in simplicity.
Sure.
You know, and so many different beautiful cultures, man, and it helps you to keep evolving into your purpose. So for me, when you say what's next, is just for me to continue on with God's grace to pour out love and to let people know out there in the world that no matter where you at, no matter what you're faced with, just hold on to your vision, man. Like, believe in yourself, and those dreams can turn into reality. Just like you had a dream, I got a dream. Like, that stuff is real. Like, it happens.
Right.
You know, you don't have to sell your soul to the devil. You don't have to sell out. All you got to do is just keep believing in yourself.
Okay.
And we are both here because of that.
Absolutely.
You know,
Go ahead.
and take on, like, you know, I learn from you constantly. I never think that no matter, I might have one of the best records in professional bodybuilding history, doing business in 90 countries around the world, yada, yada, yada. I'm like just a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to serve the gifts that God has given me. I'm going to serve the communities and whoever I'm in front of. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So that is my next step, to keep doing it. I don't know, 2025, I could say we want to do greater things, you know, than what we're doing now. But if, you know, we merging together now, what we got going, and just keep on merging and passing it forward and giving love to every single human being you come in contact with. And I always say this, and I'll let you go after this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not impacting every single person's life that you come in contact with, then you're not living your life to its fullest purpose, bro.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
You got to. You have to impact over influence, right?
That's it.
And I don't think that you know, but, you know, just a short amount of time that we've been learning each other and becoming closer and so forth, you play a major part in what I'm doing, you know, and that's why I always reach out to you, just try to stay close, because I believe in the people that you spend the most time with. You know, you pick up on things, your traits, your business. That's why I always tell people, try to surround yourself by not necessarily who are better than you, but people who can inspire you to where you want to go, right? And we talk about so many things, man, that, you know, I commend you for being in the place that you're in, and being humble and accepting where you are in life, because you may not even know it, but you're playing a major role in my life now, in my journey, right? You know, I told you several times when we're building, I just don't want to be a mom and pop brand. You know, tunnel vision, we're growing. You know, we want to be able to compete with the Nike, Under Armour, Adidas one day, right? The things that we're doing, how we're merging and doing the things that we're going to be doing, from, you know, the music stuff we were just talking about, or, you know, the apparel that we're going to be working on and different things. So we got so many great things that are coming, man. But, you know, I just thank you for, you know, being there for me and being able to slowly take me along the journey. And the one thing about it is, man, is people always want to come, right? And it's just like quick fixes, right? Yo, can you help me do? And I understand that works, but really building a relationship, understanding, and helping that, so that way you're not skipping steps for them, because that learning process as you continue to grow is important.
Yeah.
Like we all know somebody that we can just go and do something for them right now and just get it out the way, right? But I feel like it's more lessons. It's a better experience when you kind of dangling that carrot, but taking them along with that ride with you, so that way, you know, I can learn more from you during that process, as opposed to, hey, Kyle, here you go, you know, boom, boom. Yeah, you can do that, and you do that in certain situations, but me spending the time with you and learning those things, and that's why I wanted us to be doing what we're doing now with this. You know, this is not a podcast, is because our talks are so valuable, you know, and our next, you know, episode or so forth, we're going to get into a lot of different things that will be more specific, but today was more so about introducing, talking about where we're coming from, why we're doing this, who we are, and those different things, right? So I just appreciate you, man. You're doing wonderful things. You're inspiring me. I'm inspiring people. We're inspiring together. Let's just keep this thing going, man, and keep growing and doing the things that we do. Yeah, and we're going to get, you know what I mean, people to learn who we are.
Of course.
You're a comedian, too. A lot of people don't know that. You're a live comedian. So I hope sometimes we're going to get on here and they're going to see how funny and much of a comedian that you is, because everybody tries to probably just think you serious. People think I'm serious. People think, you know, they meet me like, oh, man, Kyle, he quiet. I'm not quiet. I just don't talk about a lot of bullshit for no reason, right? Yeah. We have meaningful conversations, but we also have fun, and we talk our shit and do things like that as well, right? Mm-hmm. And then next time, you know, you got to maybe bring some of your cigars out. We know you're a cigar connoisseur,
cigars,
different things. We're going to talk about some sports. Yeah. We both relish to the sports thing, and maybe we got to talk about Gabe a little bit. Get Gabe up here or something, man, and some different things. You know? And I'm going to get my boy out. Who I'm talking about? Who I'm going to bring up here? Who you know?
Who?
My boy, NDO. That's your boy.
Oh, yeah, my man.
You know, so shout out to NDO.
Yeah,
NDO, we're going to get you one time, man. We're going to get you come out here and talk to us, man, because, you know, we got a great story as well. Yes. You know, from what you talked about at the Gilly and Wallow Gun Violence Prevention. You was here with Kevin. You guys shared great stories, man. So make sure you guys continue to tune in, man. We hopefully, even this one right here was impactful for you guys to learn something, but wait till you see what we got coming next, all right?
It's not a podcast.
It's not a podcast. This is real life talking. This is real shit right here. So we out, man. Not a podcast. We see you on the next one. All right, Tunnel Vision, Levrone Signature Series,
Sure.
Uncrowned Kings. We talk about that next.
Right.
What we got coming, baby. All right. So we out, man. We appreciate y'all. Until next time.